And welcome everybody. We are so excited for week 12. We were just kind of giggling about, we were calling it March 124th, Groundhog's Day, but now it's actually shifting. Even the places that have been the last to come online are having a new future. So there's a new mindset. But I also want to acknowledge the unrest that we have going on around the world, actually. If the virus wasn't just enough, let's add social unrest, and then let's add economic insecurity and unrest there. And to be super transparent always, I mean, dealing in the world today is not an easy thing, and that's why we're here. We're here to bring about certainty in the face of uncertainty. And again, thank you to my panel. So good to see you. We have Sean stepping in for Andrew this week from Dr. Genius. Thanks, Sean, for being here. We're glad you're here. Tanya has some updates in the clinical side. Steve, Bob from the finance side. Of course, Brian from our teledentistry and communication side. And then we are so grateful to have dear friend and colleague.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you bet. Dear friend and colleague, Samir, representing CareCredit, and I'm really addressing patient financing. We felt like it was really important. We tried to get him here last week, but of course, getting Samir anywhere is a gift. So we're grateful to have him this week. And we're going to really dive in today. I want to go first out to Bob Affleck, our dental coach for the area of finance. And Bob, bring us up to speed as to what's happening in the world of finance.
All right. Well, it's so great to be on with you again this week, and definitely want to share a few things. Just 1 second, we'll get this up. Definitely there are some movement. Well, there is some movement with the PPP and the EIDL loans, things that everybody needs to really know and understand right now. So primarily good news for the PPP program. There is in legislative right now, they're signing off on allowing it to be 24 weeks instead of the 8 weeks that everybody was concerned about and stressed out about. Definitely that is about to be ready to be signed off on right now. So definitely want to let you know about that. Also the EIDL loan, just a little precaution on that particular one, or just to make sure if you are using that loan, that if in the future, if you ever need to do any sort of practice finance on your practice, and or if you go out to purchase another practice or something else may happen, just know that the SBA will be placing a lien on your practice, and that loan will have to be paid off. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Obviously, what we've been talking about for the past couple of months, or not months, weeks, it feels like months. So past couple of weeks, it's all about finances. And during this time, it's a very stressful time for many people. It's really all about, planning for the future and building up your reserves for anything else that happens for the future. So we're just recommending that for those of you that didn't have really a reserve for yourself, that let's start planning for that for the future and get up to at least 3 to 6 months financial reserves. Some of you, I think, during this time, and even if it weren't this time, got hit with some unexpected taxes as well. So let's see what we can do to help you to get that paid off and not have to worry about the IRS money to get back to the practice started up. You really want to make sure that we get money for that and emergency funds as well. So let's talk about obviously consolidating your current practice debt. Obviously, we want to free up your cash flow by taking your current practice loans, your equipment loans, your credit card debt. And I know a lot of you probably have racked up a lot of credit card debt right now, and other outstanding debt that you have. And again, if we have any tax debt, let's definitely talk about it. Let's talk about freeing up your cash flow, building up your cash reserves, and invest in the fine tuning of your systems of the practice for sure. That's obviously where NextLevel comes in, and you'll want to talk to them. Invest in your marketing for sure. And then basically what I just really want to share, and I'm trying to get through this quickly because I know we have a lot to talk about today, but primarily I want to really put out there for everyone that I'm offering definitely a free consultation and a financial review. So what we'll do is a free practice cash flow analysis, reviewing your goals and vision for the future. Obviously all about creating a plan of action and complete a review of the practice expenses that you already have, and look for ways of areas to free up your cash flow. So that is my quick update for today. And I just wanted to put my information up there for you. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much.
Bob, thanks for updating us and knowing where we need to put our attention from a finance standpoint. And thanks for the good news. That's the thing about this webinar.
Yep.
We have the latest news. We're also going to get news from the CDC when that's coming out. Tanya's going to talk about that next. So really what we become here is a hub for the latest information so that you can now put to rest the 8 weeks. We got 24. That's a big deal. And then if you want to really deal with your finances, Bob has done some magical things with some people that had some real tough situations. Bob, thank you for like changing people's lives and helping them remove money as a barrier in their practices. You've done some great work and I appreciate that. Let's go over to Tanya in St. Louis. Let's see what's happening in St. Louis and what's happening from a clinical perspective.
Thanks, everybody. I've always kind of watched the CDC for any updates they have on antibiotic resistance and so forth. But now it's action-packed TV. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern, if you want to go and look in, and they're going to have this huge town hall meeting that you can participate on Zoom. I know the links are coming up in your chat session now. You do not need to reserve your spot. You just check in. There's Zoom and Facebook Live also. So you have 2 options tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern, should you want to watch that. I know I'm going to be there. Couple of new things for you all. If you are a PerioProtect provider already, I've had lots of people say, hey, how do I start to market this? We've got so much material for you, but we made it really easy. There are 2 blogs that are recently posted on our website, and all you have to do is just with a click of the button, you can share it on your own Facebook page, or you're welcome to cut, copy, and paste anything that's there. We know you guys do it anyway, so we just say, feel free, take whatever you want. Even the pictures, use them as you will. So both of those blog posts are available, and the link will be in your chat session. And there's a whole history. There's probably, I don't know, 25, 30 blogs there. You can pick any of those. Every week you could do something new, and that's not all PerioProtect. I've had a lot of questions, Gary, about what is an IRX tray? How does it differ from the real perio tray? So just to reiterate, the IRX stands for initial prescription. If your hygienist isn't coming back, if you have patients who are delaying their care because they can't even get an appointment yet, right? You haven't been in the office for weeks. If you've got concerns about aerosols or people who've been traveling and they want better care at home, they're more aware of how important their immune system strength is. Perio trays are a great way to address gingival infections and inflammation that are chronic burdens on your immune system. The best way to handle this viral pandemic is not to get the virus or stay as healthy as possible. And so tray therapy is an excellent way for you to address patients in need who can't get in your chairs now, even if you don't have a hygienist coming back yet. IRX, initial prescription. All you got to do is scan or get an impression and send in a script. We're not even requiring a perio chart. What we'll do is we'll give you a uniform seal all the way around the edges. And we'll tell you, put more gel in there now than you used to. You want some of that hydrogen peroxide floating around the mouth, and you want that peroxide is effective against the original SARS virus. We expect it to be effective against this virus too. Help decrease the viral load in saliva. It's not a bad idea to have people wear their trays at least 10 minutes before you see them when they come back in. So the difference primarily is how we make the seal. You do not need a probing chart for the initial prescription, the IRX tray. For a real perio tray, you need a probing chart. And to be clear, all trays right now are $68.95 out of the PerioProtect laboratory. So that's special. That's still confusing people, but it's real, and it goes on through the end of July. Thanks,
Awesome.
everybody.
Thanks for taking care of us. And we're going to learn dentistry, what CDC has in play for us tomorrow at 2 p.m. Thanks for representing. It's a big deal. Now let's go up to consumer behavior. Consumer behavior is a key aspect of really understanding what's the consumer thinking, who is the new patient. And we get that information off of Google searches. And we have Sean with us today to represent Dr. Genius. We miss Andrew, but we're grateful that you're here. And just don't let anybody know, but this is the brains behind that organization. We got the brains today. We had the heart before. We got the brains now. Let's give it up for Sean.
Oh, thank you, everybody. Great to be here. Some familiar faces. So let's dive right into how the consumer is behaving online. And let me share my screen here. Okay. So we're talking about interest to intake, which is to revitalize your practice by focusing on patient experience. We have some big news in Google search algorithm and how it's measuring humans and how humans behave. And this just dropped, so it's great timing. We're going to talk about what interest means and how we view this. And it's focusing on the very first step a patient or a new patient takes, which is a search query. Then they experience your site, your content, and maybe decides to call the practice. And so how do we ensure we transform this interest into intake? And we're going to dive right into that. We're going to dive into Google's newest algorithm change. And so the topics are going to be the huge news from Google, what's trending in search. There's been some changes too, so it's going to be important to note this, how we can win, results, and a solution, which is really all of us working together. So this came out last week, maybe 10 days ago. So Google's already forecasting a change in the algorithm based upon real experience and perceived experience by the human being. So what this means is your site mobile friendly? Is it fast? Does it have comprehensive content? And if I may exit this presentation real quick, I want to take you to the publication that dropped this new news that Google is forecasting in 2021, search is changing. And I'm going to focus on just a couple of things here. What is page experience? So page experience in short is it's a measure to understand how a user will perceive an experience of a web page. And that means a lot of things. And so I could spend a lot of time on this, so I won't get into too much of the nitty gritty, but it measures a whole host of things. One thing I would like you guys to focus on to help you out is with all the technical jargon in here about how content loads and is it fast, is it useful, how easy is your website to use. Google still goes at great length, and it's a quote from the release, that while all the components of experience are important, we will rank pages with the best information overall. So it's still about delivering valuable content to your potential new patient. And then we'll dive into what that means. But this is a huge shift within Google, measuring experience. So it's very important to know. So here's some things to consider. So an inquiry starts with expressing interest. So are you even found? That's a very big question. Is your site fast? Is it optimized? Is it easy to navigate? What about your content? That's just one component. Then how's your front? Are they friendly, inviting? Do you have a system to audit that and coach it, like NextLevel Practice? Do you have paperless forms, like Dr. Genius Patient Experience and OperaDDS, a touchless experience financing options like CareCredit? Do you have the cash flow to deliver on these items? And being a healthcare marketer, we see all of this. That's a huge part of the entire journey. But if we focus on the very front part of this new patient journey, we know most doctors don't really want to worry about that. Producing content, worrying about links, and how do I rank online. But I'd like to show you guys this. So this is emergency dentist, and Andrew has spoke about this before. And it's very important that our practices are showing up for emergency dentistry during COVID time, right? We do see some cooling off in expressing interest in emergency dentistry. So this is a 5-year period, but right here is COVID, right? We see emergency run up and it comes down. So those searches aren't lost, though. They're just moving somewhere else. And so if we look at this, dental cleaning, all but disappeared when practices shut down. It was COVID-19, and it's surging back up as states are reopening. People are searching different terms or going back to their more normal routines, looking for different terms. Look at dental crowns. So while emergency is important and is extremely important during this time, it's also important to know where is everyone going. So I want to show you guys these two items, and then how can we capitalize off of this, so what's through content, and we'll help give you some tips there too. Here's a new platform I'm going to expose you to. It's called Exploding Topics, and it takes search volume from Google, Yahoo, Bing, all search engines, and will start monitoring a search term if it is popular. And so this is extremely important, patient experience. So this has been growing for years, but in recent years, it's trending upward enough to be caught by this radar, and it has a 200% growth in interest. So the public is interested in patient experience, which is a lot of everything. It's from start to finish. Then you have, we overlay these charts. If you take a look here, you have virtual care. Something that may have not been spoke about or discussed very often, and we can see right here, it skyrockets up, kind of cools off, but now it's coming back up. And so if we think about this in context of emergency care is cooling off a little bit, but more like normal dental searches are starting to increase tremendously in tandem with virtual care and patient experience, and Google comes out and says, hey, we're changing it. 2021 is about experience. We need to think that way. How do people experience content? Is it useful to them? So search has changed, people have changed, the dental experience has changed. And so this is great that search is rebounding, but you have to be found. So here's how you can be prepared. Let's publish content on many subjects because humans search so differently. Let's talk about all the things you want to talk about and all the derivatives of that, or different versions of a similar service, or describing it in different ways. Let's talk about all the services you offer and all the ways that this can be incorporated into whole health dentistry and how your entire body is healthier because of a healthy mouth. Let's answer questions. So when you are developing content or producing content for your audience, answer questions. How teledentistry works, that's really straightforward. That's what's going to tell you how it works. Same with if you're talking about dental crowns or dental implants, and Google will grade you as well. I want to highlight this. So we partnered with OperaDDS for our Dr. Genius paperless solution, and we deployed content behind the product offering. And now, and this was just deployed 2 weeks ago, teledentistry in Port Charlotte, Florida, our client ranks #1. And he ranks #1 and 2 down in the links. And if you click on this link, it goes right to the consultation form. So this is why content matters and why it's so important that you produce valuable content that answers questions. And ultimately, here's what you can achieve by doing this for yourself. This is a client that, as you can see, during COVID was not really affected as much. These are their new patient calls month in and month out. And I'm sure we do see a bit of a dip, but you know, they got 200 new patient calls through all of this. And they had tons of online appointment requests for new patients. And that's because of content. So Google continued to show them through this time. And it would be a big takeaway for everyone here is producing content. So here's an example. And here's the Dr. Genius piece in this and why it's important to think about everything else like CareCredit, having the cash flow to invest in your practice, having paperless forms. But this client of ours got 199 new patient inquiries, 84 web form submissions. But now let's make sure case acceptance happens. Let's make sure with NextLevel practice, these inquiries, this interest turns into a case acceptance, right? So this is how we can win together. And I'll end with this is, please craft comprehensive content. It's extremely important. The average first page result is around 1,500 words. Please make sure your site's fast. And of course, we specialize in this, Dr. Genius, but we also want to help you. You can post on social, do Q&A videos, write blogs about the things you love about dentistry and publish it, and it will help you. Of course, NextLevel Practice helps with coaching. Bob Affleck, huge for freeing up cash flow. It's so important. And we can deliver the ultimate patient experience together because it's everything. And so if you're interested in how you currently rank, if you look at the report on your right, it's a GeoCanvas report. And we'll take your most valuable keywords, we'll run a special report, and it'll actually show how you appear or where you appear, you know, just north of you or just south of you. And this will really help us know where you are so we can help you get going to where you want to be. And you'll visit this link down here, and we'll go ahead and run a free GeoCanvas report, and I'll analyze it with you and assist you guys in strategizing. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks. And it's one of my favorite things to do when I go to the home office. I hang out in Sean's, he has this big orchestrated screens everywhere. and you get to go and see behind the scenes about the magnificent tools they have to find out how you rank. It's really a blast. So Sean, thank you so much. I really appreciate your participation, and come back with you and Andrew next
I will.
time. All right, buddy, you can stop sharing your screen. We're good
Thank you.
there. And then let's go right to teledentistry, because we've been talking about teledentistry here. And Brian has been our invaluable asset for paperless materials, touchless dentistry, and the latest in teledentistry, because there's so many things. It's a new area of dentistry, and having Brian as our expert has just been invaluable. So thank you, Brian, and please update us.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, and I appreciate everybody being on the call today. My office opened up about a week ago, and I know most people are opening up now, and it's a very busy time. So thanks for being here. And what a great panel. Sean did a great job, I thought, of kind of talking about paperless forms and teledentistry and increasing the searchability. But right now, what we're seeing in my practice is that it's just uncertain as to what your schedule is going to look like. We were talking with my team about how what the schedule looks like in the morning is certainly not what it looks like at the end of the day. Now more than ever, it's like one of those cliches, but it's very true that people are dropping out and coming in the schedule on an ongoing basis. So increasing the communication right now with your patients, I think, is hugely important. We made the decision to send our recall notices a couple days beforehand to try to get a jump on things, which I would recommend everybody do. And then sending ahead the day before the pre-screening forms that we talked about on previous webinars to just to verify again that patient's going to be coming in. So getting ahead of it, leveraging the pre-screening forms, and remember you can edit them. So if you want to add specific details to your office, in particular, what I would add is things that you've done in response to COVID-19 to help engender confidence again in your patients, because that's really what it's all about right now, I believe, is getting your team and your patients confident in your care. And obviously removing touch points is a huge piece of that, and leveraging no touch visits through teledentistry for those things that you don't have to. That's one of the things that I've really been encouraged by other practitioners who are telling me the different ways that they're doing follow-up visits through teledentistry, thereby removing the need to actually having the patient come into the practice. And I'm particularly excited to hear Samir's speech today. He's a wizard, and I don't know about the rest of you, but there's been some negative press that I've been seeing about the charging, which we're doing for my office for PPE. And so getting a handle on finances and getting ahead of that, again, communicating ahead of time to our patients, I think is going to be vitally important. So thanks for having me, Gary.
You bet, Brian. And without your tool, I mean, we're not able to do the things we're doing. You know, you had mentioned the day before, we're actually 48 hours to 72 hours before reaching out to our patients, letting them know the 5 buckets that we're communicating to, that we've enhanced our PPE, that we've addressed our airborne situation of aerosols, that we have our patient flow set up. So how we flow through the office, like even coming in here, we have 2 spiral, in New York, they have the spirals. They made 1 an entrance and 1 an exit. So you talk about the flows that patients have. Then you also speak about complete health dentistry and how we're prepared pre-procedural for using PerioProtect or hydrogen peroxide, and we're a complete health practice. And when you do those things, one of the things that I wanted to pick up on what Brian was saying was there's 2 things that you need to be speaking about: safety and sensitivity. So if you're speaking to the 10, like one of the things that we want to be careful of is not mapping out, and I'll bring my screen up here. I think it'll just be easier to see. I just put a little screen together. Speaking to the 10. So we're bigger than our circumstances, and we have bigger circumstances than we've ever had in dentistry. And responding to a sensitivity level to your team and to your patients. When I say sensitivity, like Brian's in Minneapolis. So you're in Minneapolis, right? I mean, it's like there's a lot of unrest, and everybody's relating to that unrest differently. So being the compassionate to the 10, even if you don't have any, issues around it for yourself personally, being in the world of the sensitivity to a 10, speak to that. and speak to the 10 in the area of safety. Those two things are key. And then the last piece I wanted to bring up on today is stress. Stress is a really big factor of people that we're talking to, whether people that work with us or not. And there's a distinction called the circle of concern and the circle of influence. So the circle of concern is, obviously we need to be aware, like I'm in New York here and there's been looting right outside my building here and the Nintendo right here last night, and I'm stepping over glass and I'm concerned about safety, right? But when we look at the circle of influence, like I can cause something in the face of whatever's there. Like, for instance, we have an office in Southern California, Dr. Fulbright, and they were asked like, hey, what do you think about this? Are you scared? It's just a little weird. And when the team member can go, yes, we were concerned. And when you've influenced your team to know that we have these 5 buckets of safety and you're letting them speak from a confident place, the doubt, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that patients have get overcome by the certainty that the team member exudes in their communication. Like Dr. Fulbright takes great care of us, and he did all these things, and now we're able to pass that along to you. So I wanted to highlight these 2 things: 10 sensitivity, 10 safety, and then begin to focus on what you can influence and what you have control over rather than what you can't. During tough times like this tool right here has really made a difference for a lot of people. So I wanted to share that today. Brian, thanks for representing teledentistry and the great state of Minnesota as we go through this.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. I want to go to Steve's got his pulse like I do on 50 states and provinces in Canada. And, Steve really brings a wealth of knowledge from his Profitable Dentist magazine, and he's plugged in. So unplug, Steve, and plug us into what's going on, buddy.
You got it. So I had kind of a long list this week, and Puerto Rico, by the way, Gary. You forgot to mention Puerto Rico. I had a good call with a good friend in Puerto Rico earlier this week. And the reason I say that is I've been doing this Coming Back Stronger series, and it's evolved in a really interesting way about areas of dentistry that you wouldn't think would be significant right now. And as it turns out, I've got a friend in Puerto Rico who does 50 to 100 dental startups in the US. His office just happens to be in Puerto Rico. And he said 2 interesting things. One is that the volume of startups has started to accelerate in a way he never would have imagined. That, as it turns out, this is a great time to do a dental startup for a lot of reasons. And I won't go into them here, but fundamentally it's real estate that you can negotiate, money that you can negotiate. Bob will tell you that, you get loans for 1% with no payment for 6 months, and now they're stretching out to years. I'm an old guy. I've never seen anything like that. So now is a good time for startups. PPE. I've gotten a feel that docs have found their level of confidence. Gary, you do a good job of saying, speaking to the 10, they've found their confidence, whatever that is. And it may be different than the person down the street. It may be different than somebody else, but their staff's back and feels comfortable. Patients are coming back and feel comfortable. And so whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, we'll figure it out as we go. They're coming back and starting to put that on the back burner and say, okay, good enough, and let's see patients. Staff, I would say, is probably about 90%. Those issues are put to bed. The fears that staff had about the virus, I don't hear very many of those. What I do hear is staff that has children at home. And that's probably the biggest. I would say it's tipped to where issues with staff are more, they have 3 kids at home. There is no school. There's no summer school. Those things haven't come back. And the docs who have been pretty understanding about that have gotten a good response versus just saying, hey, if you can't come back, I'm going to fire you and find somebody else. As long as you're working with them, they really want to come back. They just can't. So that was on the hot list. Cash flow, as Bob said, cash flow. And along with that, I've heard a lot of chatter about, in fact, I did another Coming Back Stronger interview about, is now the time to drop PPOs? And the answer is kind of interesting. Dropping PPOs and when to drop PPOs is two very different things. And it has to do with maintaining your cash flow now. So if PPOs are part of your cash flow, now's not the time. You need cash flow through at least 24 weeks, I guess, is the new number that Bob told us through PPP. But, you know, it doesn't mean you can't start strategically backing up the ability to say, listen, this a 38% discount to be in a PPO is just too harsh. So engineer the change, but don't come in tomorrow morning and say, hey, I heard it on a webinar with, you know, Gary Kadi, so I'm canceling PPOs. And then I think I shared with you guys, I started to turn to a national lab, which is a new kind of phenomenon in dentistry. DSG, Dental Services Group, a guy, Lou Azara. Lou's the president, and Lou has been, you know, we started this about 3 weeks ago, and suddenly it's become this regular call that we make. So what I ask Lou is, okay, who's back and when? He's telling me that about 85% of their labs are open, which means their docs are back. So docs are sending cases to the lab. He said, but the interesting thing is their average case size is up anywhere from 30 to 50%. Which means bigger cases coming in. And I think Samir's probably going to have something to say about that. And now's a good time to do that. So they're, instead of single unit, you know, posterior crowns, what they're getting are larger cases, implants, bridges, cases that might have been high dollar and pushed to the back burner are now coming to the front. So, and the other thing was paperless. What Lou told me was, no touch dentistry or low touch dentistry. He said, you know, he goes, we've always been interested in that impression, and we infection control the heck out of it. We stick it in a bag, and then we write on a piece of paper, stick that in the bag, and then somebody at the lab takes the paper out, and we do a bunch with the paper. We got all these stacks of paper. He said, we never even thought about the paper. So they are moving quickly to two things that fall right into Brian's sandbox there. One is no touch and paperless. And the other is using Zoom in this kind of a format, and a person on the other end who is a lab concierge. They're trying to figure out a name for what do they call this person. But instead of you having a case with digital impressions, you having a case, you call the lab, you know, they can't take the phone call. They call you back, leave a message, and you do all this. If you're doing digital impressions, and they're seeing that growth just explode right now, digital impression lines. You're taking a digital impression, you can click a button, you can be talking to a lab liaison just like this. They're looking at the impression and saying, doc, looks great, or doc, you know, there's a little, can't see the margin on the back. And doc says, okay, click it, and the lab has it. He said those technologies, he used the term fast forwarding. He said, we've watched them, figured 5 years from now, we would sort of evolve into it. And he said things like digital impressions, digital workflow, digital communication, just like we're doing here, hands-free. He said it's just accelerated and fast-forwarded 5 years probably. So that's about everything I've got on the list. So hope that helps it. But what I'm hearing is getting back to normal, getting back to routine. Docs are finding their place, but there are some kind of cool new things coming along in the process.
It's great, Steve. Thanks so much for bringing like such a breadth and depth of like, you know, transition as we walk through this. It's so important. If you're stuck in your practice and you don't know what's going on in the landscape, it throws you off. And like, you know, I just got my DE magazine, but like that stuff's so archaic in there. Like, you know, getting up to date information like you provide, you know, is big. So it's not just your magazine. You're doing it digitally, and you're doing it here and doing it on many different platforms. So we're grateful for you. One of the things that I did know, the skew toward the larger cases is a lot of the offices that we work with are calling all the cases that were in motion or might have been closed or ready to close, and they got all those in. So they were front loaded. Two things are happening. We're seeing the efficiencies of these practices because they're large cases coming through, and they're going, why don't we do this all the time? Why, you know, there's these, why don't we do this all the time mentality coming in, like, because we had to learn things by accident. And so, you know, this has really been eye-opening, and it really allows us to move to Next, our special guest today, Samir, is with CareCredit, and CareCredit is a true partner. When I say true partner, is they really care about the industry, and they're advocates for the whole of the dental industry. It's about how do we elevate our game? Unlike maybe the ADA, who is still defending amalgams. You did I say that? I just said that. You know, it just came out. It just came out. We have a company here that is like badassery and is about the future and is about taking care of people, and not only from a patient level, but a team level and a doctor level. My good man, Samir, thanks for joining us this week, Samir.
My pleasure. I mean, I'm looking at the screen and it's pretty intimidating to be amongst all of you. But no, thank you for having me. And you know, as everybody's going through between Brian and Sean and Steve, I'm thinking, I did not tell them what I was going to be talking about, so some of the keywords are just hitting close to what I was going to discuss. So hopefully, you know, I can answer some questions. I can take a look at, just kind of give you where CareCredit is at right now. What are we thinking? What are some of the things that we've heard, and hopefully that kind of puts some perspective, but it won't even be close to what the experts on the screen right now have. So I'll do my little bit.
Thank you for your humble entrance, Samir. Of course, you just got to be this beautiful, humble guy, like it's an angel. Look, I want you to tear it up. I want to know things like, what is CareCredit taking on? What's brand new in the CareCredit world? Because you're plugged into not only the dental world, but the vet world, the optometry world. Like, you're plugged into wider landscapes in dentistry, which is important for us to know. We want to know, like, maybe we'll start, like, where do you see patient financing role in the pandemic? Like, let's start right there. Like, how do you see it really plugging into that? Let's start there.
Yeah, so patient financing was always, and maybe I'm biased because I am with CareCredit, but it was always in our minds should have been one of the key aspects of a dental practice. When I would walk in, even as a rep and a manager, it's so very easy for us to figure out when we look at high functioning practices, you know, is CareCredit used as a product or is it part of a process? And it's a huge difference. And Sean and I were talking about earlier, is like, we are pretty fortunate, and we worked towards it in the last 30 something years, to have over 115,000 dental providers that are part of our network. That's just in dentistry. We have over 240,000 that between optometry and audiology and all the other healthcare specialties. But what does that even, why would that even make a difference? Because it's, yes, dentistry for CareCredit, it is our largest market. It is this is how a company got started. So patient financing, even before, I call it, like, there was AD and there's BC, now there's going to be PC, which is pre-COVID, was always kind of like a key element that I would think to have as part of a successful practice. It becomes even more so now, because I heard, like, you've got the cash flow. If it's 24 weeks, cash flow, patient experience, because think about what patients are feeling. I love the fact that you said, you know, you got to speak to the tenant. It's the safety, and it's safety and cost. I mean, those have always been a lot of concern, more so now. So what can we do? What are some of the things we are looking at to help our dental families, our patients, and of course our doctors to there's already so much. What I can ask and what I would hope is to start looking at it as, okay, now when the patient is coming in. So I'm not surprised, Steve, when you say you're seeing a lot of the doctors seeing a lot of larger cases.
Yeah.
I love the profession that we get to serve. I absolutely love the profession we get to serve, except for the people that are on here and on the screen. Most patients are not looking forward to going to a dental office. I've never really looked forward to going to a dental office. So if it was a challenge before, it's even a bigger challenge or a concern now. So how can we shift? How can we make it to where a patient still feels that, hey, you know what? It is still important to my health. It is still important for my health. And how do I change that, and how do I go about it? Let me see if I can. Here. So, so it's always, so again, going back to, like I said, I've heard like the word cash flow, and how do we change that? So these are some of the things, like, okay, if that's what we are setting ourselves up for, what are some of the things that CareCredit is doing? So I kind of wanted to kind of set that, kind of let you know where we're coming from. This is also a good time if you've already started and you've already opened, that's fantastic, that's great. But if you are, just to start setting those expectations, because things were great before. You know, we rarely make changes to our life and our health and the behaviors that we do when things are great. When things, it's what happened between March and now has made all of us think very differently. So I always say, do you have CareCredit or do you use CareCredit? Or do you have patient financing or do you use patient financing? It's similar to my treadmill that's sitting in my garage. I have it. Does not make me a runner. And just like my gym membership. So I'm going to do a better job. So I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. Take a look at it. And then again, you know, looking at the whole contactless technology, we saw it coming. Thankfully, we were already working on a lot of it. So I'll talk a little bit about that as well. And of course, you know, it's all, I mean, Gary, you and your team, it's all in how it's communicated, how the words you've used, the tools you've used to make it easier for our patients to be less overwhelmed. Definitely less overwhelmed when it comes to money. You know, clinically, we have doctors who are super, super skillful. I mean, they can help them get there. We have teams who are truly caring for that patient. They can help them calm those nerves. But when it comes to money, are you still using it as, or are you still shying away? Or is it something that you are presenting up front and discussing up front? I'm not even talking about presenting, but at least having that conversation up front and consistently. So it's probably, you know, I'm going to try to quickly, how we've seen, like in our world, when we looked at it, this is how dentistry is paid in the US. It's about 50% comes from insurance and about 35% comes from check or card cash. We are not in it to compete with any of that. If you are in network, good. If it works, you will never hear a CareCredit rep come in and say, I'm here to help you get out of a PPO network. It's not our expertise. It's not what we do. If a patient wants to pay cash, actually, we want the patients to pay cash. But so what we're finding, it's how do you recognize whether you're effectively using a patient financing, whether it's CareCredit or somebody else, how are you effectively using it? So way we look at it is like about 15 to 20% of your overall collections should come from a third-party financing. That's a good, healthy practice, 15 to 20%. But that, you know, when you start talking about dollars, it becomes even more confusing. Like, okay, so how much should I be doing? I think the easier metric would be what percentage of your patients, if you had about, let's just come up with a number, say 10%. If even just 10% of your patients were applying, that sets you on a path much faster, and you will see like the exponential change when you have 10%, even 10% of your patients applying. Now, they may get approved, they may not get approved, but it's the part of that process that I was talking about earlier. Once we have that, you will start to see, you know, think of some of the large retailers that you've gone to, Nordstrom's or Target. The person at the checkout will always ask you for it. Not because you're wearing nice glasses and have a nice watch on your hands. It's part of their process. So looking at it from that aspect, because there's something to be said as part of a complete patient experience, it's how the phone is answered to, how I was addressed when I got to the office, how the team handed me off, and how the doctor, my conversation, it's all of that. And discussion about funding and finances and money, it's just as critical. It's just as critical. So now that we are, you know, we're in June. So one of the things that we thought, okay, how can we help our practices? What are some of the things to kind of get them quickly on the path to recovery and to rebound from thankfully, if they've been, hopefully they've been thinking about it for the last 2 months of what is that their day one, week one, month one looks like. So what we're going to do is for the month of May, June, and July, CareCredit is doing for our doctors where they can offer 18 months of no interest patient financing to the patient, but pay the fees for a 12-month. So why is that important? I mean, again, if you've got a patient who's going to be coming in, you already are coming in, you're not going to be seeing, a lot of the offices are not going to see the number of patients that they were seeing before.
Right.
So now you've got smaller number of patients coming in. You don't want to, they didn't want to come time and time again before, even more so. Let's reduce that time. They need the treatment. Let's have that conversation and make it attractive for them to say, you know what, we can offer 18 months of promotional financing where we were only doing 12 months. And the doctors pay the fees as if they were offering the 12-month. Because the critical part is, and I hope there's like a little shift in our mindset to where the offices and the doctors and the teams need to start looking at that this is something need to happen before the patient walks into the practice. Versus to have them prepared, have them at that mindset as they're coming in versus I'm here, now what? And guess what? That's what our team actually helps them do. So I don't know if I went like really long to Gary's original question of like from our patient financing. I mean, that's exactly how we are looking at it. It's we're starting to see an increase in the applications. We're starting to see the we've seen that the unemployment has gone down, the number of filings that have gone down. So it's a lot of positive things are happening. And I want our dental offices to focus on what the positive is happening and what is possible versus what you can't control. Something what you just said earlier, can you actually control that? No, you can't really control the outcome, but you can control of how you make an impact. No.
So I want to jump in here. This is huge.
Yeah.
So this is the first I'm hearing that we are now able to offer our doctors and their patients. The doctor pays. I want to get this real. I want to deepen this right here because this is a big deal. If we're giving 50% more time for somebody to pay, we could take a $5,000 case and instead of $417 or $4 something a month, we're down to $270 a month. And you guys taught me that people spend up to their car payment. And this is key because when you can break down the monthly payment, you can get those bigger cases. We need those bigger cases. Why? Because we need to see less patients change PPE less times. So we got to do the bigger cases. The only way that I found to do a bigger case is break it down per month. Verizon, Samir, is my favorite one. They always tell me, they never tell me when I sign a 2-year contract that it's costing me $2,500. They just tell me it's $60, and that the difference is between what you're paying now and what you're going to be paying is like $20. So I'm making a $20 buying decision, but I'm really making a $3,000 buying decision for this many phones.
Yeah. And that's what retailers have done really well. I mean, and I think I can speak for many of us here. We say it all the time. People buy car payments. They don't buy cars. They don't buy houses. They buy mortgage payment. Right? We are trained. We are set in that. What can I afford per month? Yes, we will all. I mean, I'm sure everybody would love to get the whole cash up front, and there may be an opportunity where you will get that. But I'm talking about. So there's those end of like you have some percentage of patients who will pay you cash and will always pay you cash. Fantastic. You will have a percentage of patients who would not pay you, who wouldn't do anything, even if you were to do it for free. Again, let's talk about the greater middle, which is where majority of our consumers, that's how they think. That's how we've been trained to think is in that monthly, what can I afford? What can fit in my budget? What can fit in my lifestyle?
Yep.
And continuing the conversation.
One of the things that, what can doctors and teams do for a complete patient experience? What are some of the other elements? Do you have anything else that you wanted to add to that? Because I had that as one of the questions I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
From a
So-
patient experience standpoint?
Yeah, so for part of the experience even right now is, having to giving card back and forth. So let me see. So I talked about a little bit about the setting expectations. Let's just put it this way. Let's start with that. Let's start with, if I'm going to set an expectation, that's part of my experience. If I knew what to expect, nothing comes to me as a surprise. That adds on to my experience. Anything comes to me as a surprise is that's when I say, everything was great up until this point. So when it comes to same thing, when you're talking about setting those expectations ahead of time, do you have a set of financial policy in place? If not, we have tools where based on the questions we ask, you answer, it actually generates one customized for you. Again, have it posted, have it on your website, or and make sure it's part of the new patient packet. To again, it's nothing. If I'm discussing patient financing, or if I'm discussing cash courtesy adjustment, if I'm discussing credit cards, I, as a patient, know that these are the topics that are not off limits. I can talk about it, I can discuss it. You've opened that door for me. So that kind of helps with the whole patient experience standpoint. But the other part is, everybody says, like we talked about contactless, right? It's giving the application back and sitting down and typing and whatever it is. So we actually have now where they can use a QR code. It's customized to each practice, where I can just scan that QR code. You can have it in the operatory, you can have it in the waiting area. You can even have it on your website, where once I scan it, it automatically does the application right on my smart mobile device. I don't have to sign anything. I don't have to pass the pen and paper back. You don't have to keep the paperwork for yourself. It's all done. It's you. If they're approved, they get the account number and the credit limit immediately. Again, adds on to, I'm here, we've already set up, we have the time, can we do that same day dentistry? I'm already here for that. So keeping me from having to come back and forth multiple times. Again, I'm gonna quickly go through that, and then you can shoot any questions at me about it. Is the same thing about, actually perfect example, office is closed, bills were sent, the invoices were sent from the dental office, except for offices are closed. I can't even go and make that payment, even if I wanted to. Well, that does not help your cash flow. So I recommend, to make sure that they are enrolled with CareCredit.com. It's pay my provider. Literally, it is just that. I use my phone, I can go online and make the payment to the provider, to my doctor, and not have to, again, exchange the cards and the sign and the receipt or any of that. Keeping it to where the patients are feeling like, okay, I feel safe. I see all the checkpoints and everything that the office has done for my safety, for my concern. And this was one last thing, and I can do that. So.
No, it's great. It's great. One of the things I wanted to add, Samir, is I want to share my screen. So if you could just pop this off.
Yeah.
What Samir said earlier is, look at CareCredit as a process, not a product. If you look at it from that context, it's going to increase the total value of a case. It's going to increase your case conversion rates. And I want to give you a little tip and tool on this no touch, low touch interaction. One of the things that we see is hard to get emotion in the case presentation part, because you're dealing with a mask, people with masks. So you can't tell if I'm happy or sad or engaged or mad or angry or whatever. So we realized this early on. So here's what we're doing for case presentation. Watch this. We send the patient into the consult room. This is the consult room. We send the patient in here. The treatment coordinator takes the mask off, and they're sitting in the doctor's office, and we present the case through Zoom in that office. So now they see us, we're fully expressed. We're showing, this is a CareCredit tool. This is the financial option sheet. We're walking through it. Now we have a screen to work from. By the way, you're getting the spouse involved, because everybody's on Zoom now. So you go, would you like your spouse to see the case too? while we're presenting it. So you remove the objection for the person to say, I got to talk to my spouse. Is there any other financial decision maker? And now look what we're doing. We're breaking the case down to the monthly fee. If I got 18 months now, and I just want to get in closing, how do we present that now? So isn't this a really cool tool? You're presenting it fully expressed on a screen using the tools. Samir, how do I present that if I'm a treatment coordinator? How do I present the 18 months as a benefit?
It's so interesting. So I'm so glad you brought that up. So let me kind of show you that you were just one slide ahead of me. So I love you for that. So
you got
what Gary showed was exactly that's it. It's again keeping the conversation open, keeping the continuity of that conversation. So this is the 2020 version, Gary.
I use the old one because this is too much stuff. I need to send a concept out, Samir, not like too much stuff because you have regulations.
I do. So.
Killing me.
But here's something that you would like about this one too. So the conversation usually, of course, you have some of the best wordsmith right on here. So if I was to present it, it would be like, hey, Gary, your investment today is about 5,000. Your benefit should cover about 1,500, so your portion is 35. In our office, we take check, credit card, or cash. If you do pay cash, there's a courtesy adjustment. We accept all major credit cards. Or a lot of our patients do like to pay and budget into their lifestyle. If that's the case, we can do it for $195 or $146 or $89 a month. What works best for you? So the reason I love this is only, again, you don't have, even if you're doing it very first time, you just walk through it. You don't need to. I did not even discuss CareCredit. I want to see what is it that you're interested in right now. And what this also does is let's just say, there are instances where they will say, you know what, I'm going to go home and I need to talk to my wife. If I'm going to spend that kind of money, I do need to talk to my wife. So think what that dinner conversation sounds like right now, Gary. I come home, I went to Dr. Katie's office and he said it's going to be $5,000. My wife's going to say, does it hurt? I'm going to say, no. Like, all right, then we can wait. Versus if I had this, now again, I'm keeping the conversation open. Of course, she loves me. She'll say, we can't do 3,500 or 5,000 right now, but we may be able to fit 146 or 195. And that's the cool part about this. It's actually customized to what you offer. So I highly recommend right now, 18 months, why not? Why not offer it? Because now the patient is thinking, okay, yes, I need to. And here's the cool part, Gary. Do you see the QR code? They can just scan the QR code and apply if they don't have the CareCredit card already.
All right, send me the 2020 version, Samir. I'll put it up. It'll be my new screen. Just send it over. I'm all in. I'm millennialized. I get it. So thank you for that. Yes, it was beautifully done. I'll now upgrade. Now, last thing I want to do is the call to action here for those that are on the call and watch this at another time. There's these CareCredit missionaries called PDMs. And you want to call your PDM missionary into your practice ASAP so that you can get all the benefits. It costs you nothing, and they will set all this up in your office so it's like a machine. And so we don't have to do it. You get the CareCredit rep going in there. So tell them what to do, Samir.
Yeah, so the easiest way is, of course, send me an email. If you don't know who your PDM is, I'd be happy to, it would be my pleasure. An honor to connect you with that rep. But if you would rather, you can just go to carecredit.com/contact and enter your information, and your PDM, your rep will contact you. And just like everything else right now, I'm assuming, you are thinking, oh my gosh, that's one less person I want walking into our office. Guess what? Right now, they are not. They are doing exactly what we are doing right now, is our meetings, and they will set up the time or schedule what works best for you. If there's a lunch and learn or training or whatever needs to be done, I need to do it in okay, I need to do with half my team and then later on. That's what they are there to do. And yes, it's complimentary, it's free.
You're amazing. And one more thing, we created this dental duel. It's dentalduel.com that their PDMs go in. It's like Family Feud. And if you want to have some fun and lighten the load, go have a dental duel with your team, and it's a bunch of questions that they ask, and whoever wins the game, they They do a lunch and learn, and it's a lot of fun, and you want to do it. So invite them in to do a dental duel in your lunch and learn as well. And they could do it via Zoom as well if you want to have some fun.
Yeah.
So that being said, from my team to yours, from this amazing colleague, all of my colleagues here, team, overjoyed and overwhelmed the work that we get to do on this call. Thank you for the wisdom, and thank you for the contribution that you are for the last 12 weeks. And we'll see you next week for week 13.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you all. Bye, guys.
See you, gang.